turned down. All right. Think we're good to go here. How is the volume if you're watching live? I hope it's fine. All right. Welcome to the Rough Report. And it's a rough one out there today. We're still getting live updates as to what's going down exactly in the convoy and how it's essentially being shut down right now as we speak. Give myself a little more volume in the mic here. Okay. Where do I even begin with this right now? I have a lot of different kind of angles I'm hoping to cover. I want to maybe start off with showing a few things that capture my feelings about this. There's some content I've come across in putting together today's episode that I was like, you know, this guy or this person really, just took the words right out of my mouth, reached right into my brain and captured the essence of the feeling for me, essentially. So let's see what I'm talking about there. Let me try and find the first such instance. Yes, here we go. Great video. You've probably seen it, or many of you have probably seen it because it's been seen by millions of people. This particular share that I'm going to use off of Twitter here itself has 2.1 million views, let alone, how many views it's probably actually gotten on TikTok and all that, where it was originally posted. Let's take a look here. There we go. I think this was a couple days ago, this particular video.
Hey, just to make sure it's clear, fuck you. Shut up. Shut up and go fuck yourself. Fuck you and fuck you. I don't give a fuck, man. I don't give a fuck about you. Go the fuck home. Nobody fucking cares about your bullshit. You walk around with your fucking tailgate party and your goddamn nonsense. Nobody fucking cares. Exactly. Put your fucking camera away. Shut up your fucking ass, piece of shit. You got fucking fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. There, you got to get my fucking statement last time? Fuck off. Go fuck yourself.
This guy, essentially, in this little short video, has captured the essence of what's happening here in Ottawa, essentially, or the essence of the attitude of the residents of here in Ottawa. Beautiful stuff. I couldn't. Nobody could say it better themselves. Every person that I have had, the privilege of speaking to in terms of just being a regular Ottawa citizen that's had to deal with this stuff, this is essentially been their attitude. Like, yeah, I am in Ottawa or the Ottawa area, and I am luckily not residing or commuting through where a lot of this has been taking place. I've been relatively removed from it. But that's definitely not everybody. And so that's pretty perfect in my opinion, in terms of capturing the essence of what Ottawans. I'm not even sure what I'm called now. I used to be Torontonian. Is Ottawan the going nomenclature for that? I honestly don't know. I've actually never thought about it until this point. Anyway, yeah, that essentially captures the feeling of Ottawa. But an even bigger thing, capturing the feelings of Canada in general. Because over the past couple days, especially since Justin Trudeau announced his favorability of, wrong word. I would announce my favorability of Justin Trudeau's decision to invoke the Emergencies Act. A lot of opinions flying around on that. And of course, some of the most spiciest coming from Americans. And not just like any regular Americans. Of course, there's lots of Americans on the far right. We talked about last week how Donald Trump had announced his support, and that then led to a bunch of foreign, American donations pouring in favor of, funding these protesters in their ongoing efforts. So obviously, there's a lot of Americans with a take on it. What gets me, though, and I'm not going to name names, mainly because I just don't want to get that into this type of drama in terms of flame wars between different podcasters and different streamers and things like that. I not a huge fan of diving too far into that end of things. I don't think it's very productive. But I think for most of them, it's very good for their channels to have a lot of that drama going on as substanceless as it can be. And I just don't want to be part of that. There we go. Get my proper desk light on. Make it look a little less dreary in here. Sorry about that. It's a completely self-produced show, people. I don't remember everything, and off the hop, and I get a little stoned before I start to do these streams. So forgive me for the funny little things that I do there. But anyway, yeah, a lot of American lefty, or rather so-called lefty, or depending on how you want to put it, a lot of accusations of fake leftists out there, some of which I would agree with, some of which I wouldn't. But definitely a lot of, big name American streamers and people with YouTube channels and American political commentators suddenly having an opinion on what's going on in Canada when in almost any other circumstance they couldn't possibly give less of a shit. And again, going through this topic and diving into it deep on the social medias like Twitter and YouTube and stuff, I came across a YouTuber who calls himself by the username Bothered Boy. And all his videos kind of have a trend. It begins with, "I'm bothered by." And he put out a video saying, "I'm bothered by American leftists supporting the convoys." And for various reasons, there's been a mix, some of the lefty or more centrist streamers perhaps seem to be under the idea that this isn't perhaps a far left or far right protest. They really hopped onto and latched onto this idea of it being a working class protest or representative of the interests of the working class, even though there was no economic demands on behalf of the working class. The only political message that they seem to have from this, outside of the outright fascists and far right people that were the main driving force behind these protests, is just to simply end mandates. And for a couple reasons, that's objectively silly, because the mandates are scheduled to end in the near future anyways. This was a plan that was put together by the government in October, that they, if given certain trends in case numbers and hospitalizations, that we would begin to lift certain mandates that have been specifically designed. Whether you think that design is good or not, it's all been in an effort to essentially keep people as safe as possible while continuing to engage in the economy, if you will. I think I've made my feelings on that sort of thing perhaps already known, but if you have any questions there, feel free to ask. But yeah, Bothered Boy, basically, when I found myself getting angry at all these American personalities thinking that they had insight into Canada, I found myself getting sort of agitated at some of this, where it was painfully obvious that America, or a large number of these Americans, don't seem to realize that Canada is culturally and politically although very similar to the United States in many respects, fair bit of differences too in how we tend to politically react to things and how we engage with our politics. Lots of examples on how there's differences there, but there's differences that Americans don't seem to appreciate, and their sense of nuance in terms of trying to understand what's happening here is not good, to put it lightly. So I'm going to just show a short clip of his video, because if you want to watch the whole thing, I do highly recommend it. This is about 10 minutes long. I'm just going to show the first little bit of it, because I think in this first minute and a half, it really just, captures the essence of everything he's going to unpack for the next several minutes in the video. But yeah, let's take a look at what Bothered Boy was saying. Because as I was watching this video, I was just like, this is literally all the words that were running through my head, just put, in a very communicable order. So here we go.
Me today. American leftists. Yeah, that's right. We're finally doing, I guess, a little bit of drama, leftist infighting, whatever you want to call it, because some comrades have pointed out to me some of the absolute nuclear weapons grade takes that American leftists have been having on the Canadian freedom convoys, and how some of them, I think Kyle Kalinske being one of them, are pro-convoy. So here's my message to any American leftist in support of these convoys. Shut the fuck up. Seriously, shut the actual fuck up. You never talk about Canada because you don't give a shit about Canada. And now y'all have the motherfucking audacity to come here and talk about my nation, which you don't care about and don't actually know how it operates.
Yes.
Weirdly enough, right, I know more about how America operates because unfortunately we just consume a ton of your media and all of your goddamn politics, because guess what? Kind of also affects us, right? So your average Canadian, while not exactly being a, political expert by any means, is definitely very much knowledgeable in terms of the basics and the general structure of how the American political system works, because again, we consume a fuck ton of your media and politics. We kind of have no choice. And yet now, once it's finally profitable for y'all to do so, to talk about, oh, good old boring Canada's now got a white supremacist problem? Oh, geez, yeah. Well, you know what? Most of us have actually been talking about this shit and trying to fight back against it for years. No thanks in large part to, a lot of liberals up here thinking that, oh, we're overreacting, and a bunch of people who can help spread the message not doing so because Canada doesn't track well with data and the algorithms. But now that we're all talking about the convoys and Justin Trudeau there implementing the Emergencies Act, all of a sudden now everyone wants to talk about Canada. Everyone's making all the memes and everyone's talking about how, no, you know what, the convoys are actually really good. And so, my original plan for tonight.
Okay. Before I end up just showing his entire video, because I don't want to do that, go to his channel, watch the entire video, Bothered Boy, with the video titled, I'm Bothered by American Leftists Supporting the Convoys. Yeah, I took the words right out of my head, my dude. I really couldn't have put it better. It isn't, it's a popular trending topic that you saw coming across your Twitter dashboard. And when you're a political streamer like that, well, you got to strike while that iron's hot. You got to get that attention. You got to sink your teeth in and be involved, right? Despite the fact that you can have the most idiotic freaking take possible. Now, there's a number of reasons why the Emergency Act was invoked. I'm not saying by any means that I am perfectly in support of the government having the capacity to do this to protesters. But we have to be a little more nuanced about this. It's not a simple black and white thing where I'm against government doing stuff, because the government doing stuff can go in a few different directions. It can do stuff that's good for people. It can do stuff that's bad for people. It can do stuff that's justified. It can do stuff that's not justified. and being accurate in observing what those things are, what the fallout is, what their consequences are, and what that means. It's all very important stuff. So, like the very, I don't know, unnuanced take that the government doing essentially anything to stand in the way of any kind of protest is fundamentally absurd. And a lot of your more kind of socialistic libertarians or, anarchists, those type of left-leaning folk, the essentially like anti-establishment or anti-government or anti-state type of leftists are the ones that have that particular opinion more than anybody. But it's a losing strategy. You're giving into their talking points by doing this. Like, I'm sorry, they are not equal to us. Fascists are not equal to leftists in terms of their opinions, their intentions, what they intend to do to people, and what they expect as a result of their protesting, what their message is, what they want to happen. These are drastically different things than what leftists would be demanding. Yeah. Of course, Katie, all the things that the RCMP have done at pipeline protests that were extremely brutal and basically like militarized police in riot gear just violently rolling in to stomp people down. It happened on all of those types of indigenous protests. It happened at the G20. One of the most notable examples, you can still watch the footage from a bird's eye view of people peacefully sitting in the middle of Yonge Street as they are completely trampled by an army of riot cops. The brutality that leftists in this country have experienced when they are standing up to actual oppressive power as opposed to, mandates to help mitigate the impact of a disease on our populace, but actual demands that would affect and improve the working class quality of life. That's how that stuff gets treated. It gets treated extremely brutally, right? And this situation that is happening in Ottawa right now, it's complicated in terms of, the different types of people that are there. There's some people who, I would say they're almost no better than fascists in that they are all too willing to ally themselves with these very fasci types in order for political expedience and convenience to, basically use their political will and their political power to get their ends met, which is ending the mandates, right? So they're not much better than the fascists, but perhaps not outright fascists themselves. Without that influence from those more further right people, they're naturally a little more subdued in what their demands are. But there's those types of people. Then there's the very, very violent types who have been hoping for an altercation almost this entire time. It's something they've been sort of frothing at the mouth about. And I'm going to point to a Substack article called Dispatch from the Ottawa Front. Slowly is telling you all he's in trouble, but who's listening. This was from 9 days ago. So this is a little bit of old news by this point, and especially in regards to Chief Slowly, who has been is essentially resigning now. The first black chief of police is resigning after accusations of bullying, which I find to be a bit egregious and strange in its timing, being that, you're talking about a black chief of police who bans the thin blue line symbol and his officers for being able to sport it. I think he made some enemies in the naturally sort of white supremacist attitude that permeates through our entire policing system nationwide. Essentially, this is what happens when you try and be the good cop. They muscle you out. Hence, ACAB. Not to say that he was a perfect cop by any means, but in terms of some of his actions as chief of police, a lot better than what you'd come to expect from a lot of other people. And he seemed to want to do something about these protesters early on, while it was very noticeable that his officers didn't. You can watch all the footage of these Ottawa police officers for the first little while of this protest being very chummy with a lot of these folks, something you would definitely not see if this were political action from the left. Like we've already established, how police officers view leftists and treat leftists is a fair bit different. Yeah, in the my body, my choice. Yeah, they're trying to co-opt like lefty slogans like that in regards to, protecting abortion rights and things like that. But yeah, applying it to their right not to have a vaccine. And as we've covered in earlier episodes when I showed that clip of Noam Chomsky talking about this, no one is being forced. Like, no one's being pinned down and having the needle stabbed in them, right? You are being obligated to get the vaccination if you wish to continue to engage in society and the economy. If you want to engage in those things, there are certain levels of precautions that you are expected to take in order to do that. And we do that in all sorts of ways already. To attend public school in the first place, to be in the military in the first place, hell, to be a police officer in the first place. Like, all these things, there's all sorts of vaccinations you're expected to get, regulations you're expected to follow that have been crafted in the interest of public safety. We have all kinds of laws like this. And the whining that came across when, seatbelts first became a thing. I think we talked about this on previous episodes as well. So we're just kind of recapping a lot of different points that have led to this moment. It's crazy that they can say my body, my choice without a sense of irony. But, a lot of what they're doing is crazy. And one particular thing I wanted to point out, because and this is something that a lot of the American comrades have been sorely missing, is that they don't understand the type of crowd that was there and the dynamics of these types of crowds. So there's something I wanted to talk about that you don't really see in mainstream news a lot, but this journalist went down there, saw it himself, Matt Gurney. Read this entire article yourself if you would like. But Yeah, so to kind of give an essence here, I'm going to just go over a couple things real quick. Are there good, frustrated people just trying to be heard in the crowd? Yes. Are there bad people in the crowd, including some who've waved hate symbols and harassed or attacked others? Also yes. Are there people taking careful care of the roads, sweeping up trash and shoveling up ice? Yes. Are there hard men milling about, keeping a wary eye on anyone who seems out of place? Yes. So it's a lot of different things. There's a lot of different types of people in this crowd, and a lot of people who are in this crowd who want to be perceived a certain way. But definitely read all of this article, but I want to fast forward into this part. You may have heard reports of a secondary encampment that is well removed from the main protest sites from Parliament Hill. It had been described in different reports as either a logistics area of or some kind of staging ground for protesters. It is a parking lot outside of a baseball diamond, RCGT Park, right next to a large Marriott hotel, and though not far from Parliament, it's well removed from the main sites. Sending protesters to the parking lot was actually the city's idea. It had directed some trucks there earlier in the protest. After the city had moved on and encamped in Confederation Park, some of the people there, as well as supplies, vehicles, and a shack, were relocated to the parking lot at RCGT. Nicely relocated with the help of the city, evidently, as opposed to, if this were a homeless encampment where people did desperately need to live in order to, have some level of warmth and survive, certainly would have been torn down. But, besides the point here, I guess. the largest police enforcement action to date, again, this is January 9th, so keep that in mind, a raid to confiscate fuel was conducted at that site too. So he's going to talk about the secondary site a little bit more. It was clear well before I had arrived that this was something different. There was absolutely no visible police presence, not a single uniformed officer or marked cruiser. Note my careful phrasing here. I have no doubt this place is under watch, just not overtly. This site, for lack of a better term, has been fortified. There are many trucks parked in the parking lot, but some of them have been arranged to form outer walls. These walls have been augmented with wooden sawhorses, and that looked like and what looked to me to be stacked pallets of some kind. There was an entrance with a tent marked reception, and you can see in the photo there's where it says reception on that sign right there. I wish I could give you a better description of the site or tell you what was inside, but as soon as I began to approach it on foot, someone very quickly fell into step behind me. A series of others, 4 or 5, met me before I made it to the reception tent. We chatted briefly, and I got the distinct impression that it would be way, way better for me to be somewhere else. I left. They did not threaten me. Everybody was very polite and all smiles, and it was extremely clear to me that my presence was unwelcome. It was clear to me that these people were organized. This is wildly different from the sites closer to Parliament. As I have written in the earlier dispatches, during the daytime it's something of a festival atmosphere, basically as I've heard it from many people in the area who were not part of the protest, but, just living amongst it. That is just basically an extended tailgate party. You saw that the guy in the first video clip that I showed giving the big FU to all the protesters who were just outside of his apartment, basically calling what they were doing a tailgate party. But yeah, anyway, at night it's more grim and much more much more tense, and I still had no concerns or issues walking through the entire area. This encampment near the stadium, that was something else. Later that day, by chance, I found out that a friend of mine had been in town and had decided to go check it out for herself. She told me that she was able to get inside by slipping in with a larger group. When she started taking pictures, however, she immediately began to be followed, and she was tailed until she left shortly thereafter. Again, read this article. Highly recommend to get all the details and his sense of what it was like to be there during that time. Oops, sorry. Yeah. So there was definitely people there, and you can see it in like the likes of Pat King and the likes of, some of your more extreme fascistic type of guys, that there was very much an intent of violence or hoping the violence could escalate, and using that sort of outward, obvious, very visual sort of government brutality to either gain sympathy for their cause and say, hey, look, Trudeau's the repressive brute that we were always accused him of being, or, just an excuse to escalate the violence. Again, we're going to show some more details in regards to this because there's a lot more to talk about in regards to that. And by the way, thanks. I noticed we have a few more viewers. So if you are here, do be part of the live chat. I love seeing what you have to say. So be interactive. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, be part of the conversation. I'd be glad to address them as much as possible. So yeah, there's definitely this person talks about a little bit in terms of like the government and law enforcement intelligence that was in the area and what they were attempting to gather. So the invocation of the Emergency Act leading to the banks have started to freeze accounts linked to the protest. Freeland, our Deputy Prime Minister, and a final warning, Finance Minister and Deputy Prime Minister Freeland says truckers at the protest will be stripped of their insurance, which could make it very difficult for them to work as truckers again. These are, these aren't the type of truckers who are workers, you could say. These are owner-operators. Yeah, sure, they're workers doing a job when they're actually working and not doing this shit. But, you know, they're essentially the, I guess you could say, petite bourgeoisie of truckers, in that they own and operate their own vehicles like a contracted business. So, yeah, this was yesterday that this particular article came out on the CBC. Again, do read it. Do as much reading as you possible. Like, read actual stuff, people. That's why I kind of always drop those things. Don't just depend on the what I'm trying to cover. You know, when I cite an article like this and you have any questions at all and you want to expand your understanding, definitely read the whole thing. I highly recommend doing so. Yeah, so there was that. And this was one of the main things that I heard a lot of my American lefty comrades getting really upset about. That the freezing of bank accounts was setting a bad precedent. This was sort of, you know, I have my issue with the fact that, you know, far right versus leftist protest and how they're generally treated by the government. Yeah, I have my gripes with that. In the fact that, you know, these guys were treated with kid gloves. Some of the articles I read even had many protesters describing how surprised they were that it was easy for them to basically set up camp in Ottawa, that they didn't really experience a whole lot of resistance in the act of doing so. To, you know, yeah, somewhat of their surprise. But the invocation of the Emergency Act in this scenario, in order to lead to the freezing of these accounts, is probably one of the most conflict-free ways they could have gone about doing this. Oh, what if they do it to lefty protesters who are starting a general strike? I wouldn't be surprised. They could already do that. The fact that the Emergency Act has been used once now, and it's only been on the books since 1988, it means it's been possible for this to happen to any group of protesters since 1988. I think the particular reason it's been invoked in this time is, like I has already mentioned, and like I've been kind of building up to, there's a certain faction of the people there that would have loved for the violence to happen, and actually are loving that some level of conflict and violence are happening. The police were rolled out in great numbers to start beginning to do arrests this morning. So they're finally doing their jobs. Don't know what actually got them inspired to finally start doing this. Maybe because the black chief of police they don't like is resigning, so they're getting something they want there. Who knows? I'm sure we're going to be learning a lot more about the inner workings of these operations over the next little while. So I don't want to comment too much there because it's sort of obviously speculative. But when you could see the footage when police started gathering to start arresting people, they were wearing riot gear. They didn't look like they were ready for a battle, so to speak, right? Much like you would see again at the G20 protests and things like that. Oh. When I have too many tabs open and I accidentally closed the wrong one. Reopen, close tab. Thank you. Yeah, here, there's a series of these Canadian heritage moments that people have made that I'm going to be happy to kind of show to you. I believe this is Tamara Lick being arrested. So there's your Canadian heritage moment for you. But again, you know, not riot gear, wearing his bright-colored winter jacket.
Oh, boy.
Just nicely pulls him to the side. And this big bad rebel that was going to stand up to Trudeau and his repressive government just kind of rolls over. Yeah, arrest me.
And me.
It's fine. Yeah. You know, I'm going to show the some other footage too, and I thought the same thing about that person that I feel about this person. Almost a sense of relief that they're being arrested. You know, finally, we get to cry about being victims some more, and I don't have to be out here any longer. Thank God, this is finally over. I'm getting arrested.
We'll see you soon, Tamara. Hold the line.
It's everything I wanted, right? So, great Canadian heritage moment there. Obviously, a vast contrast from how leftists are treated. I'm going to keep hammering on that note for a while. Yeah, so, and there's, like, I don't have all the footage pulled up here of every little bit of police activity. I was going through a lot of different stuff today, and I wanted to condense it down to, the finer notes, fit this within this talk within a reasonable amount of time. Yeah, the right is tripping balls that they weren't read their rights. Like they care about rights when it directly affects them, right? They don't actually care about people's rights, right? If they cared about people's rights, they wouldn't have been, honking horns and blasting music and basically engaging in some level of psychological warfare against the civilians of Ottawa for 3 weeks. Yeah. Sorry, trying to get my thoughts straight because I had so much stuff I wanted to cover, and I may be running out of time now. So essentially, yeah, like the cops rolled in, started making arrests, trying to do so with an air of peacefulness, like they didn't want to come out looking aggressive, didn't want to come out feeling aggressive, I guess was part of the strategy. So these people didn't particularly freak out and start engaging in violence. Well, it's a little bit more complicated than that. I'm going to try and find. Yeah, here it is. Here's the Ottawa police were regularly updating folks via Twitter on what the situation was. Protesters are assaulting officers, have attempted to remove officers' weapons. All means of de-escalation have been used to move forward in our goal of returning Ottawa to its normalcy. So yeah, there's definitely been people who did try and put up a fight, and were seemingly happy to engage in the escalation of violence. So some of these people's online Americans, in particular, opinions of just roll in the military, as if like seizing their assets and seizing the foreign funds that were coming in to essentially allow them to be paid far-right protesters, and so cutting off their resource to be able to continue to stay there was somehow a greater violation of rights than just rolling in the military and busting skulls. Oh, the military would at least follow due process. It's mass arrests and dispersion of people. What are you talking about? Use of due process. You're trying to clear a protest site here. Let's face it, due process is not really part of the equation there. I don't give a shit about some fascist due process if they can't get access to their stupid GoFundMe or whatever fucking foreign money from right-wing rich assholes we're pouring in to try and continue to antagonize this thing. Some of the American donations that were pouring in after Trump announced his approval, again, something we talked about this show if you have been watching previous episodes, hundreds of thousands of dollars. It was pretty obvious there were some rich far-right assholes who were very interested in funding these people to continue to fuck around. So to have this level of sympathy for them where it's like, oh, their due process was violated. These goobers were allowed to party for 3 weeks. They didn't make any real tangible demands, anything that the government could even work with. And the guy who espouses great replacement white supremacist theory was the guy who was like, well, we want to have a conversation with the prime minister. We want to sit down. We're not going to stop till this prime minister resigns. Like, what do you think was going to happen? How do you think they were going to react to that? It's insane. So when you have a situation like this, there's going to be no good way out of it. And I think the government's response in this was very restrained, for better or worse. You know, I appreciate why it was restrained in a certain capacity, and there's other capacities where I sort of wish it wasn't so restrained. Again, there's lots of details that we're going to learn in the fallout of this. But the ideas around slippery slope ideas, because this act had been invoked, and, it sets bad precedent. And again, like I ask about the precedent of continuously bashing in our heads every time we protest. That's a nasty precedent. Nobody seems to really be overly concerned about that. They all, I don't understand the disconnect there, And again, in reference to these American commentators who think they have an insight as to what happens in Canada, let me tell you something. Canada is a little bit different than the United States in certain respects. Like, we do not have freedom of speech. We have freedom of expression. And the way we define that under our law is that you cannot espouse hate speech and have that considered as protected free speech. We have limitations there. We have legal and cultural concepts baked into our system that is essentially a lot more anti-fascist than what you would see in America. So yeah, as much as we could say our neoliberal governments lend themselves to fascist power and will sooner sympathize with fascist power before a lot of leftist power, that's absolutely true. I have no question about that. I wouldn't have an argument against that. But one thing is quite clear. Canada, both legally and culturally, has a lot less tolerance for this kind of bullshit than America does. And it seems like even American leftists are so married to the mental concept of, freedom's freedom. So if we have the freedom to protest, it's got to apply to everybody, and if I hear that fucking Voltaire quote one more time, I know people are well-meaning when they use that Voltaire quote, but I'm sorry, it's stupid. I may not like what you say, but I'll defend to the death your right to say it. No, I will not defend to the death people's rights to say that, people like me who are queer or all my queer and trans friends deserve to fucking die. I am not going to defend that speech. I don't care to defend that speech. And I'm glad I live in a country that also does not care to defend that speech. Fuck their rights. Quite frankly, their rights are not equal to ours. When you're out there making demands that we brutalize immigrants and refugees and refuse to help those kinds of people under the idea that, we're going to let them all in and then white people will be replaced, in the concept of white people itself being fundamental fucking bullshit. No, I'm absolutely not going to defend these people's rights. This is horrible. It's stupid. I don't fucking care. They certainly don't care about my rights. They certainly didn't care about BLM. They were willing to talk all the shit in the world about them and hoping they'd get their heads bashed in by cops. I've seen these same right-wing motherfuckers, dream of running over the indigenous that were trying to block highways to protect their own land and their own waters. Something they had an actual, real, tangible right to do. The false equivalence is insane. Why are you lending yourself to this? Why would any leftist give a flying shit about a crackdown on fascist action? That's what the government should be doing. Slippery slope my ass. They will use every dirty trick in the book to trample on us if they can. It's ridiculous. I'm honestly so angry about this weird type of idealism on the political compass, where you got your libertarian and your fucking authoritarian, and then your right and your left, and people just at a certain point forget about the right and left entirely, and just move into, just being worried about that end of the scale, as if this doesn't matter anymore. That's brought me a drink. I didn't know how she was working, so I wasn't sure how long she'd be or if she'd get to join us for this episode. Looks like we only have a few minutes left. I don't know if you do want to try and hop in at this point, but well, okay. You'll have to unplug that cable from that mic. So hit the little button, pull it out. Just pull right down. I don't think she's ever pulled out an XLR before. There you go. I got your headphones here. I thought about that just in case you came down. Yeah, like the violence that they're willing to engage in and escalate in is pretty grand. Here, let me get you a chair.
Okay.
And you
stand
go over
here,
talking
Mike.
for a minute. But like, yeah, I was just basically going on about like the idea of this false equivalence that's like, oh, if we can't be okay with their rights being violated because then they'll do the same thing to us. It's like they already do the same thing to us. They already violate our rights on a regular basis, and they treat the right with kid gloves. It's a good thing when bad things happen to the right and they get theirs, essentially.
I can't actually hear.
Oh, yeah. Because your headphones are on that input. So.
Okay. All right. Now I can hear myself too. Okay, cool. Yeah, as you enjoy my little booty shorts, my tiny booty shorts. But yeah, I was just vaguely listening as I was upstairs. And yeah, folks like to be like, oh, well, you're okay with something happening when it happens, to people you disagree with.
Yes.
Like,
100%. Unironically, yes.
like we're supposed to have standards.
Yeah.
Like that's not a bad
Our
thing.
ideas are better than theirs. Our ideas defeat theirs.
Well, it's not just that. It's like, oh, well, you're okay with punching Nazis, but suddenly when someone punches a baby, they're the bad guy? Yes.
Yes.
There are
So,
different
yeah,
standards.
I'm just begging you, my leftist friends, who I frequently engage with on Twitter and have argued with about this, don't give in to this false equivalency.
Mm-hmm.
It is quite literally a false equivalency. Like, again, consider their demands at their most basic. Stripping away the fascistic end of things. What is the overall prevailing demand? End mandates. Is that a reasonable demand, something that's tangible, something that's good in the essence of public safety? And is it something that, isn't already planned to happen? When you consider all those factors, nothing about that demand makes any fucking sense. It's incomprehensible.
Mm-hmm. And like, you don't need to take them seriously. You really don't. Just because a bunch of people gather on my front lawn, I don't need to go and chat with them. Like, if they're shitting on my lawn, I don't need to go out and be like, oh, hey, I noticed that you're shitting on my lawn. Can you explain why? Can we engage in discourse? I don't actually have to do that.
No,
Like,
you don't.
You don't
So,
need
like,
to talk to unreasonable people and treat them as though they are reasonable. Like, this idea that, all opinions are valid and, like, that's absolutely objectively false. Like, I could be of the opinion that my face is made of moon cheese. It doesn't mean that it's correct, and it doesn't mean that anyone needs to take me seriously or consider me to be a dermatological expert. No one has to do that. I don't need to be included in Dr. Pimple Popper videos, or I don't need to be included as an expert from the other side, because I'm just a crazy person who has no understanding of biology. Like, don't try to validate me. I'm not valid.
Yeah. Like this right here. Here's our interim leader of the Conservative Party, who has been rather chummy with some of these trucker folks, and she's furthering the idea and trying to fuel the idea that any action, no matter how appropriate, on Justin Trudeau's part that he might be taking. I'm disturbed and saddened by what I'm seeing in Ottawa. The situation was created by the PM and his desire to divide Canadians. And that's their constant thing, is it's Trudeau that's dividing Canadians. And that is pure projection, folks. They are the racists. They are the science deniers. They are the people lacking all good sense and sense of just proper fucking courtesy towards their fellow human being. That shit is divisive. And that's why they're hammering home and using this type of speech over and over and over again. Because if they make it a regular part of the political lexicon, Trudeau divisive, it starts to become like a truthism that lives in the heads of the populace. And then average people who are maybe a little more apolitical and not as engaged or don't have a certain driven ideology start to go, yeah, you know, I've been hearing that a lot. I think that Trudeau guy might be a little divisive.
Yeah, like my my conservative friends who, you know, like to have barbecues and yell at folks trying to get reproductive health care. They say that they've been made to feel uncomfortable in some social circles. Well,
that's extremely unfair. I wonder what it's like for you know, someone to come out of the closet to their extremely conservative family. I wonder how that might feel. Because again, it's not equal, folks. Our ideas are not equal to theirs. Yes, there's certain basic human rights that I think they should have a right to. Like, you know, they should have access to food and shelter and basic things that make sure they're alive. I don't want them to suffer for any reason, like because of that. But to say that their political ideas deserve as much respect, care, and candor as ours do is fucking stupid.
no, it's bananas. Like, you know, like I understand people are giving this attention because of what it's done. But that's not the same thing as giving it legitimacy. Like, don't legitimize this. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, we don't need to take these people seriously. We can acknowledge what they're doing.
Like, look at the leader of the Conservative Party right here. She knows the kind of bullshit she's engaging in.
Yeah.
She knows.
Yeah. Yeah, and like restore unity, wholeness, and hope back to our nation. Bitch, we're in a pandemic. That's eroded like a lot of hope because people are sick and they can't get health care, and you know they can't get treatment for things that aren't COVID because of the overwhelm of our medical systems, because our governments have been underfunding them. Like, you know, that is where this lack of hope is coming from, because people are, you know, in the death throes of capitalism and everything fucking sucks. It's not going to suck less if I invite my Nazi neighbor over for drinks. It's going to objectively suck more because because fuck them. They're not going to improve anything. They're only going to make everything worse.
Yeah.
And they can just, you know.
I remember that great post about the guy who visited the punk bar in a town he didn't know.
Yeah.
And he's talking about how a guy sat down at the bar. And the bar was relatively empty. And guy sits down at a bar, and the bartender immediately is like, nope, you get the fuck out. And made him feel extremely unwelcome and was aggressive towards him and kicked this guy out, seemingly unprovoked, out of nowhere. And the guy writing this piece basically said, hey, what was that about? He's like, oh, he had SS patches on his jacket, so we weren't just going to allow that in here. And he's like, oh, what do you mean? He's like, you don't understand. If you're friendly and nice to these people and start to treat them as legitimate, they bring all their Nazi friends. And then their Nazi friends bring their Nazi friends. And next thing you know, you have a Nazi bar. And you can't get them out.
No.
That's the exact kind of thing, right?
Yeah, like,
and even to show, like, to further show the inconsistency of values and absolute fucking hypocrisy from these people is this family brought their baby to the front line and placed the kid at the foot of the riot guards. The Ottawa police put out a tweet basically saying, yeah, it seems like some of these protesters are trying to use their own children as human shields to prevent being arrested or to slow down the process of their arrest.
and let Kim, and I'm gonna go
insane.
back. Yeah, I'm gonna go back to like the whole, you know, all things are not equal. These are not parents who have like fled war-torn countries and have had to bring their children through dangerous situations in order to escape to safety. These chuckle fucks are idiots who left the comfort of their home to camp out with their kids for 3 fucking weeks and then put their kids directly in front of them. Like, you know, all things are not equal. That's fucked up. Like, I'm not against like having children at marches and stuff in general, but this isn't just a general march. Like, they're expecting police presence. Like, if anyone on the left had a protest and were expecting like police beatdowns and had their kids in front of them, I'd be like, go the fuck home.
Yeah.
Like, we don't want or need you here with your kids.
You know,
go home.
a leftist might break some, like, Starbucks and bank windows, burn some cars and stuff like that. But let me tell you, we're not we're not using kids as human shields.
Well, and like
that's for damn sure.
Yeah, I would argue that it's. I don't want to give into like the false flag and stuff, but
Well, there's definitely like outside agitators, like we saw in BLM protests over the past couple of years. The evidence of purposeful undercover cops agitating and starting violence. I think there was something around the same protests that the Kyle Rittenhouse shooting happened at. That there was a police officer not in uniform, basically caught on tape breaking windows and trying to start fires. I think that was the same protest.
I'm not sure.
There are so many instances of this happening. It's hard to keep it all straight.
Yeah.
I'm just showing stuff I like in the background here as we're talking, by the way. Bye, Felicia.
Toodles. But yeah, and it's like, because the right does that, then they're like, projecting onto us to be like, oh, well, clearly if someone, peed on the tomb of the unknown soldier, then that must be like, a leftist plant. No, we don't actually fucking do that. Yeah. Like, what the shit are you fucking...
Again, leftist protest very much has more of a purpose and a direction to address the class divide. That's almost always something that's consistently there, even in something like the Occupy movement, where it was arguably unfocused as far as leftist things go. There was a lot of people there who were there for a lot of different reasons. But the underlying thread through all of it was, the concentration of wealth and the free reign of the wealthy is bad for us. That in its simplest form, that's something that was just consistent and always there. Sorry, I want to get to okay, good. Did that one. Oh, okay, yeah. Pat King is an incredibly stupid person, as I said in this tweet here. Pat King is telling truckers, this is obviously before his arrest, which I'm going to show the footage of in a second. Meanwhile, Pat King is telling truckers the OPS has Ontario Police Service, I believe.
Yeah. Or Ottawa
Police Service. Yeah. OPP, provincial police would be the Getting my acronyms crossed here. Has said that they will let truckers leave. He recommends taking their white shirts or underwear off to hold a white flag because the cops cannot touch you if you're holding a white flag. That is international law.
That is ridiculous and bananas. Home free, tag, no tag backs. How do you manage anything works?
Stupid as hell. I mean, there is like some manner of international law that says, in rules of engagement in war and conflict, there are some, niceties written in there that basically says, yeah, you're not. It's a war crime to shoot people that are surrendering.
Yeah, but
that doesn't apply.
You can't just
at all.
It doesn't mean
situation.
You can't arrest someone because they're like, oh, free. Like, I'm gonna go into Walmart and I'm gonna just go to the electronics section and pick up like the biggest stereo or whatever I can find. And then when the security tries to get me, I'm gonna throw a white shirt at them and be like, no tag backs. I saw it on Twitter. Packing supports me.
It's ridiculous. Yeah, and as you were saying there, Katie, the community-driven idea. The one distinction I want to make, and although there is some important differences between government and community, there's a lot of crossover on that Venn diagram. Like, when the government, in a democratic sense, is working at its most ideal, when it's doing what it is supposed to be doing, it is reflective of the will of the community. That's what the purpose of the government is, in order for them to represent us, enact our interests, and that sort of thing, right? So when we say, community-driven anti-Nazi, get them the fuck out, to an extent, I include the federal government telling them to do that as well, because, we essentially voted for these people to do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I obviously understand there's differences in structural and institutional power and important distinctions to be made there. But again, at its most ideal, democracy, this is what democracy is supposed to do.
Mm-hmm. That's
right.
That's why we pay taxes.
Yeah.
That's why we elect people. It's
So
because
it's like, are we shocked that the government is finally doing a thing we like, and now we're like upset about it? Like, it's such a confused take. But luckily, not all Americans were like this. There's a few Americans I've discussed with this where they perfectly understood where all of us in Canada, including myself, were coming from, going, this false equivalency stuff or this slippery slope argument you're trying to make, it's silly. It's not going to bear out. Like, I could tell you right now, almost any time I've seen hand-wringing about slippery slopes in political talk, the slippery slope never happens. There's no remember, if we give gay people rights, we're going to have to legalize bestiality. Remember all those arguments from decades ago? Did we ever fucking legalize bestiality or even come close to even musing about it? No. Slippery slope arguments are fucking dumb and just paranoid.
Well,
They're not based in anything.
Well, it's also slippery slope arguments fight against progress. It's like, things might get better. Well, we can't let anything
watch out for that.
We can't let anything get better just in case boogeyman.
Yeah.
It's like, what
if we can't have like good stuff because if the bad guy gets his hands on it, well, it's like, the idea is we don't let that happen.
Well, bad
guys happen. We have to prevent that.
Well, also the idea is that some of the bad guys are made bad guys because of decisions that we make. Like theft is a thing because, hunger is a thing and poverty is a thing. Mm-hmm. And so they're bad guys by virtue of us criminalizing poverty. So if we had UBI and, had sustainable living so that people weren't starving to death and deciding between housing and food, then theft would go way the fuck down. So it's not like you can say, we shouldn't have a universal basic income because some people might take advantage of it. Yeah. Take advantage of what? Eating?
Yeah. That's why, there's a great quote, and I know I've talked to you about this before, by the late, great Michael Brooks, who talks about, the hand-wringing of, being upset about corruption. As he put it, corruption discourse is not a friend of the left. It's not a project of the left to be overly obsessed with the idea of corruption and government corruption. Because basically the essence of what he was saying was, I could hardly give a shit if somebody's palms got greased if it gave, a community that needed clean water. I don't care about a little bit of corruption happening when and if the end result is actually beneficial to people. Mm-hmm. And then even then, once we get the benefit, we can crack down on the corruption after. If a politician was being corrupt, we can arrest them after the fact. Mm-hmm. There's different ways to handle this, but being so the corruption might happen, so we can't do the good thing.
No.
That's ridiculous. Stop it.
Yeah, I mean, the areas where the corruption is important is, stuff like...
apparently somebody was arrested specifically for trying to injure one of these horses, by the way. A guy, tried to stick something in between its legs or something while it was walking. And so that person's been arrested for assault of a police animal. So, and you're going to hear over and over again, few bad apples. Yeah, few bad apples spoil the bunch. That is
Could you imagine if the saying was a few bad apples or no big deal?
I just like this guy. Okay, let's just listen to this because this was cathartic for me. I just searched on Twitter Canadian Heritage Moment, and there's a lot of great tweets about the convoy and that. This brave soul went out to face the truckers and give them a little taste of their own medicine, and the whining and the petulance that starts oozing off of these snowflake motherfuckers almost immediately is a glorious sight to behold.
Take your hands up. I know.
I know.
You want her to take your hands away from you, but you're going to put
Yes. Please stop. Please stop.
Get away from me now, or your hand might get hit by a
Oh,
stick.
you're not. If you hit her, that'll be the last thing you will ever do, my friend. I promise.
See, it gets tough. Oh, if you hit her, it'll be the last thing you do, my friend. I'm such a big, tough guy that I can't handle a little banging on pots and pans in my big honky boy a loud protest. It's just so silly.
Well, it's
But
like,
this guy's great. I fucking love him.
This guy's not worth it. This guy ain't worth it. He doesn't like freedom.
He doesn't like freedom. I think he's enjoying his
Amazing.
freedom right now. Looks
Yeah.
like he's having a great time with
Right.
his freedom.
No, you're gonna do is getting close to people because it could be threatening that you don't want to hit me, right?
And of course, he's like these guys always sport themselves that like as being so patriotic. That's why I fucking hate these nationalistic motherfuckers. You'll
Yeah.
never see a sensible leftist decked out in all that Canada paraphernalia. Like, who's such a fanboy of their own fucking country like that? It's weird.
well, it's like, if you're such a fanboy, shouldn't you want your country to be better? Like,
No.
you know, shouldn't you want
Better?
healthcare?
No,
Shouldn't you want-
like their attitude is yes, I want it to be better for me specifically.
No. Yeah.
Fuck everybody else. I want it to be better for me.
Yeah. Whereas, you know, my pot banger, he's clearing my acne and curing my gout. He's making my life better. So thank you, sir. No.
Oh yeah. So here's the last thing I'm gonna show in tonight's episode. That pot could cook 1 cup of rice at best. Well, that's usually all I cook, because if I do any more than a pot that size, I make an absurd amount of rice that I will never eat. So I actually like those size of pots for making rice
Yeah,
personally.
but also in terms of them being like, oh, he's threatening us with a pot. That is, yeah. Okay, bud.
Yeah.
Like, stand down.
in how calm some of the residents of Ottawa have been in the face of this, I'm surprised. Because I can just say I'm glad that I wasn't physically more close there, because I don't know if I could trust myself to not get in more trouble. Yeah, love that guy. Go after the live stream is over, go back to the beginning of the episode and watch the first heritage moment that I showed. It was within the first 10 minutes of the guy on his second-story balcony telling all these people to fuck off. It's great. Beautiful sounding Canadian accent. Oh, fuck off, eh? Like, you know, just that. Beautiful. It's
Delightful.
great. We're gonna pull this up though. Ooh, oh no. Helps when I hit the right button.
Usually.
This is the footage of Pat King being arrested.
What's that?
You're under arrest, sir.
For what?
For mischief, counseling to commit the offense of mischief, counseling to commit the offense of obstruct police officer, and counseling to commit
Be
the
a-
offense of disobey court orders. So could you please step out of the vehicle, sir?
And being a fucking Nazi.
I'd like
douche.
to get my lawyer on the phone right away.
Sir,
I have the right to a lawyer?
Of course you do.
Yeah, so I'd
I
like
need
to call
you
my
step
lawyer
out of the
presently
vehicle.
at this moment in
Sir, I need to
time.
make sure everything's safe. So I want
Oh,
you
you're
to-
safe, man, and you always have been.
I really appreciate that. I don't know who your occupants are. I don't know what's in the vehicle.
All our hands are free and clear. I have the opportunity right now.
To shut the fuck
It all
up.
stays the same. I'm going to let you talk to that lawyer 100%.
I need my lawyer to be at the ready because he's waiting to come.
I know it's within your discretion.
Now, can you just give me a nice...
So,
I understand that, but...
I'm being arrested by these officers right now. This officer here, they've cornered me, had me at the ready, and I'm being arrested. We'll talk to you guys soon. Are you live?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Fuck off.
Yeah. So, Tamara Lick, Pat King, all the main organizers have been arrested. Their accounts probably frozen as well.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I have zero sympathy. Oh, what if, again, I'll bring this up again, just to put a little cherry on top of it. Oh, what if they do this to leftists?
They do.
They do. And they would.
What is this if?
Yeah. If it came down to a leftist protest, the only way that it was carrying on was certain bank accounts had funds flowing into them. Hell yeah.
Well, also, like,
What do you think that, like, oh, well, we've never done this before, so we can't do it now. You think that's what they say to themselves?
well, also, like,
Shut up.
you know, they're imagining that leftists have money. Like, my God, I wish that we were getting paid the way that these fucking grifters are. Like, that's just not a fucking thing.
Yeah.
And I understand that, because they're getting paid, that they think is a thing. Projection.
And also, like, I'm not a super legal expert in terms of, like, the procedure of an arrest. But I'm pretty sure if the cop says you're under arrest, step out of your vehicle, you don't have the right to refuse and say, time out, no, I'm getting my lawyer.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you get to talk to your lawyer after you're arrested.
Yeah.
Like, I might be wrong. I'm leaving myself a little wiggle room there to say I could be wrong about that. But I'm pretty sure you can't just be like, nah, unfortunately, I can't step out of my vehicle. You need to get my lawyer physically here first.
Yeah, my lawyer is
Don't
in
think
Barbados.
that's how that works.
He'll be here in 2
Don't
days
think
and
that's
5
how that
hours.
works.
Yeah.
But then again, he doesn't know how anything works. This is the same guy who is telling his followers, they can't arrest you if you're waving a flag. And they can't arrest you if you're standing on Parliament Hill. That was another thing he tried to communicate to his people earlier today before this happened.
Yeah.
If you're standing on Parliament Hill, you can't be arrested.
Yeah.
I just make stuff up.
It's in the Constitution.
And say it's fact.
Yeah. Look, there's this napkin that I wrote down the Constitution, and then I wrote they can't arrest you on Parliament Hill. See, it's in the Constitution.
Yeah. Constitution spelled with like 2 O's. Oh God, it's just. I'm glad this fucking clown show is finally coming to an end. We're probably going to talk a lot more next week about what like the fallout of this is, what what the court proceedings going to look like. What actually did go down with how the Emergency Act was put into place, like what were the logistics of it and stuff like that. There's a lot of questions that are still hanging in the air. So we'll probably begin a lot more of this, but it seems more or less we're finally at this point where we can say that this annoying shithead stuff is done.
It's being,
or at least this wave of it, this instance of
this,
I mean, like the right wing of this kind in Canada never goes away, right? It gets emboldened, it gets weakened, but it's always there.
Yeah, so I think that it's just this particular event is on its last legs. But, I just want to remind people, you're allowed to have standards. You're allowed to have moral standards. And
say,
that means that
those people are bad and wrong because I have a better, more informed opinion than they
moral
do.
compass.
And moral compass.
You can say that I am better than a Nazi because Nazis fucking suck and they shouldn't be protected by the law.
I highly encourage saying that. You should have enough confidence in yourself, in your beliefs, that they can hold up to scrutiny, that you don't crumble to pieces and go, well, yeah, I guess everybody should have rights. So
I mean, like,
don't be a coward.
Basic human rights, yes.
Yes, again, basic human rights.
The
but,
rights to trample over
yeah,
other
the
people,
rights to
not a
occupy a city, maybe not so much.
Yeah, that's not a right.
Yeah. Oh, I missed that comment in chat. There's a little paragraph I missed there. I didn't see what it was. Well, sorry, whoever. I wish it would stay there longer. Maybe there's some sort of setting I can do that makes the chat bubbles on the screen there stay a little bit longer. I'm still figuring all this stuff out, okay? I'm not a video expert, I guess. That's why it's called the Rough Report, folks. I am Jimmy Ruffian, as always, my partner, Nat. And we will be back next week. Maybe we'll do it Friday again. I don't know what our regular streaming day is going to be yet. That's still up in the air. We just kind of do this when we have time, I guess, is more or less it. But yeah, let's get some cool closing music on. Yeah, there we go. My copyright-free punk music.
I thought that this was going to go back to the duck music. And
No.
I was just like, oh, it's going to go to cute.
I want to. I actually can't find the duck video again. The last few times I've searched for it.
We miss you, Duck.
Yeah, the Douglas, the king of Antifa. Yeah, thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, concerns, anything, send me a DM. Especially talk to me on Twitter. Send me a message on Twitter. My Twitter, as you can see, right up there. at the Rough Go, any of these places. Feel free to communicate with me.
Don't communicate with me.
Yeah, don't communicate with them. Send the messages to me.
I'm busy.
Send the messages to me. Yeah, absolutely. All right, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in live, and have your